Hello everybody. This is a bit different, I know. I've literally just finished rewatching The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, just for the marathon. So this is like a little intro. Now, I'm not going to spoil the ending for those who haven't seen it. At the moment, I'll talk about the ending later on in the video. But I just wanted to show you. Look at that. Oh, it had me tearing up. Like, the last 5 minutes of Journey's End. Just, oh, God, that was. Whew. I was crying my heart out. Oh, the acting is just. I'm tearing up just thinking about it. Bloody hell. It's funny because I'm kind of emotional about a TV show. You already knew what happened. I've seen it 100 times before. God. Oh, my face is absolutely smoking. So, yeah, on to the video. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the two-part finale to Series 4, Stolen Earth and Journey's End, written by Russell T Davies and directed by Graham Harper. This will be the first vlog of a two-part series talking about this particular story, because it is one of the, if not biggest, Doctor Who stories to have ever aired. Because not only is it a Doctor Who story and it's the conclusion to everything that has been set up from Season 4, but it also continues on adventures from Series 3 and Series 1 and 2, with the inclusion of Rose Tyler and her family, and Martha Jones and her mother appears as well. It's also a crossover between Doctor Who's spin-off series at the time, Torchwood, an adult-orientated show that aired on BBC 2 and BBC 3 years ago, and it was much more in time with adult viewing audiences. We've talked about 2 series so far in the Doctor Who Marathon, if you're interested in that. And The Sarah Jane Adventures, a CBeebies show starring Elizabeth Sladen returning as the role as Sarah Jane Smith, in a show more targeted to kids. And we've talked about the first series of that already on the Marathon. So this is a pretty bloody big deal. It was absolutely enormous at the time. Series 4, for those of you who don't know, was one of the golden ages of the revived series. Not only was the show getting tons of praise at this point, but viewing figures have never been higher. In fact, Journey's End would be one of the few occasions where Doctor Who would beat EastEnders in the viewing figures, making it probably one of the most viewed Doctor Who stories of all time up to that point, until The Woman Who Fell to Earth in 2018. So that's some pretty big numbers right there. And this does seem like, at least feels like to me anyway, I could be mistaken, it could be another story from a different franchise prior to this, or maybe it's just purely coincidental, but I feel like this is a precursor to stories like Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, where it's this culmination of years of hard work, all dedicated up to this finale story with epic scales and just a massive war, and all of our characters just teaming up to take down the much bigger threat. This seems like a massive crossover event for the decade. This was the biggest television event of the 2000s. It's hard to imagine now how big. This was something that like everyone was talking about. The cliffhanger for The Stolen Earth, and also Turn Left, which was sort of like a prelude to the entire adventure. It was the talking point for news articles and just general topics for weeks upon weeks. And it is just absolutely astonishing how height of the popularity of the show was at this point. Now, before I get in, like I always do, I talk about like a general opinion of this story. And what I find in my research in terms of the popular opinions in this story is that it's had a bit of a decline in popularity recently. When it came out, everyone loved it. Everybody, well, at least the majority of people, I should say. But I think I can safely say everybody absolutely loved it. Everybody was enthused with it. Everybody was engaged. Children loved it. Seeing all of their favourite characters interact and intertwine with each other. Having all of the past companions. This seems like the combination of everything the new series since 2005 was leading up to. It was coming up to this event, tying into storylines like the Cult of Skaro and the Rose Tyler cameos from series 4 and the Martha Jones's connections with UNIT and her becoming a slightly not darker, but a much more serious character in her stories for Doctor Who and Torchwood. So there was a lot going on. However, there has been stuff said about the story since the years after, which has made it, I don't want to say unpopular, but doesn't hold as high regard as most people used to think of it. Pointing out a lot of plot holes, a lot of like blandness, but like it's not as great as people make it out to be, with some confusing moral compasses throughout the story, and it's really fast-paced adventures, stopping for it to tackle much more important and serious developments throughout the narrative, and as well as just what it has done to the fan base and the community, and certain things that people don't like about this story. And so, though I still think it's a popular story, it's not as popular as when it first came out. And, you know, that's completely fair enough. And a lot of people have some great opinions on why they don't like this story. And that's completely fair. And in fact, the popular opinions on this is something which I, for the most part, have also felt about this story. I was one of those people who, when watching this on the TV for the first time, I was glued, I was pumping, my heart was racing, just absolutely just astonished by it. But then over the years, especially when I've matured in certain areas of my personality and how I view media these days, I have like, I don't like that, I don't like this, that's a bit of a plot hole, this doesn't make me feel that connected to that plot point, and all that. But doing this marathon was a very interesting experience, because this was actually the first time I've watched this story where I've finished Sarah Jane Series 1 and Torchwood Series 1 and 2, which was the series before this, where it all builds up into this. So now, rewatching this story for the marathon, I now have a heavily more respect for the characters in Torchwood and the Sarah Jane adventures. So watching this now, seeing like all of these crossovers, it means a lot more to me now than it did back then, because when this story first aired out in 2008, I hadn't seen a single episode of Torchwood and hadn't seen a single episode of the Sarah Jane adventures. Yes, I know, that is pretty bad on my part. So, has it helped with my opinions? Have I enjoyed this more? Have I gotten more engaged now that I have more connected with the characters the story follows? Well, we'll see. This is the official Region to Vanilla release of the story, which also comes with Turn Left, with this story continuing on from that cliffhanger in which Donna Noble connects to the Doctor that this blonde woman told her bad wolf, meaning that the Doctor now knows that Rose Tyler is now jumping through universes, and it means something absolutely horrible. I have not printed out yet a classic DVD cover for this. I have got one in mind that I want to print out with the Christopher Doctor Who DVD covers, who does amazing work. I want to print out that. So, highly recommend, if you're one of those people who like the DVD covers, I highly recommend connecting to that. But with this DVD, it comes with, this is really cool, a Davros top trump card. That's pretty. I don't know. I like how they have both the new series Davros and Michael Wisher. I believe it's Michael. I think his name is Michael Wisher, the guy who played the Davros in Genesis of the Daleks. That's some really cool connection right there. It also comes with a booklet which has all these toys. Does anybody remember buying any of these? Like, I'm sure I remember having a K9 toy, and I think I had that Dalek helmet. I had a Cyberman one too, if I remember correctly. And yeah, the action figures, adipose, classic series there, because why not? And what's really cool, I'll take the CD out for this, but it also comes with, that is cool. That is pretty damn awesome. Look at that. So this is one of the few vanilla releases that I actually recommend. I don't know if the Series 4 box set comes with the Top Trim card, but I think this is actually a pretty decent. I mean, it only comes with the episode. There's no special features. That's why they're vanilla. But it's pretty damn awesome to own. So anyway, that being said, let's go into the adventure at hand. And we have a pre-credit sequence which takes all pre-credit sequences and just chucks them in the dump, because this one, holy hell, this one is awesome. The Stolen Earth continues on right from Turn Left, with the Doctor and Donna arriving on Earth to find that there is nothing wrong. Absolutely everything is fine. And is confused, and the Doctor basically explains that if you saw Rose Tyler, it's amazing, but it also means that the gaps between realities are breaking down. A catastrophic event is about to take place, and it's breaking down the borders of realities itself. And that we need to figure this out. And so the Doctor and Donna come out back to Earth and are like, nothing's happened, everything's fine, nothing's wrong with the universe as far as we're concerned. So let's just get back in the TARDIS and try and figure out what's going on. They interact with this milkman who explains that it is a Saturday, which leads into the 10th Doctor said, good, I like Saturdays. A reference to the fact that Doctor Who, at this point, was mostly aired on Saturdays, because Saturday is Doctor Who Day. Come on. Every Saturday in the year is Doctor Who Day. It's just fact, okay? I don't make the rules. I do not make the rules. But when the Doctor and Donna go inside, something seems to be happening. Earth starts shaking, and then there's this massive earthquake which is felt within inside the TARDIS. And so the Doctor and Donna are astonished by this, and the Doctor's like, it comes from outside, and he opens the TARDIS doors and reveals that they are in outer space. But the Doctor didn't set any coordinates. He didn't even touch the console. What's going on? So the Doctor looks at his readings and discovers that they haven't moved anywhere. The Earth has just completely vanished. It has just completely and utterly disappeared. Might even been destroyed. We don't know. And so this, of course, upsets like everyone. Now, usually that is where the titles would kick in. That is where like that would be the cliffhanger for the story. It's like, where's Earthgod? How could it disappear? But this story has a little bit extra to show us before we get into the title sequence, as we see Torchwood with the cast of Torchwood. We see Sarah Jane, and we see a few minor characters. We see Martha Jones on the Valiant, which is now basically the main headquarters for UNIT, all recovering from this massive earthquake. We also see Donna's family, Bernard Crimmins and Jacqueline King, returning to their roles as Sylvia and Wilfred Mott. So they're all like reacting to this earthquake and it's like, what the hell was that? And they all look up into the sky and notice there's something. Now, this is one of those things where it's like, it does have those cliched moments that Russell T Davies loves to do, where he holds information for a little bit, making people not talk like normal people, but it leaves that little build up to the epic scene where you have all these characters. It's like, you look to the sky, you must look outside, look up in the sky, there's something different about the sky. And sometimes that does work, like with in UNIT, with this woman is like, she's completely like baffled by what she's seeing, and so she turns to Martha Jones and she's like, look at the sky. But then you got like Mr. Smith saying it, and it seems really odd that he would talk like that. But anyway, and all of these characters look up to the sky, and before we get to the credits, we have Rose Tyler finally appearing in this reality in End Space, where she interacts with the mailman, and she looks up into the sky, and it's like, okay, now it's time to get serious. And they look up into the sky, and you see, I believe they say 45 different planets, completely new, completely like really close onto Earth's orbit, and the visuals here are absolutely stunning. And that is where you have the credits into, basically setting up that this is a massive event, having all of our characters separated from the Doctor, which is that's just like a perfect idea. You've built up all of these characters, and you've built up in a way where they can survive with the Doctor, but there's obviously certain elements where the Doctor is needed because he is this being who knows all this information and has a great experience with fighting monsters and doing it in a morally right way. But now you have all these humans, and with the exception of Jack, who's an immortal, all of these characters are mortals who could easily die and suffocate and be murdered, and you've put them into this really drastic situation, and the Doctor is not there to save them. And so this leads to the story of what does our characters do when the Doctor's not around, because the main villains have basically put in their plan that the Doctor does not get involved. And when we learn who the villains are, which is kind of spoilt by the fact that they're on the bloody cover, I mean, they were in trailers prior to the episode's release, so it wasn't too much of a guess of who the villains are at the point, but that is just something that's just absolutely, I don't know, it just amuses me that they finally put, let's get the Doctor away from our plans as possible into the narrative of their schemes. It's just something that's fascinating me. So the story then really splits into two halves for the Stolen Earth, because the Stolen Earth is really the setup for the narrative, and so we got these two plots, and they're all interconnected with trying to get them to connect with each other, with the Doctor and Donna trying to find Earth. At this point, they don't even know if Earth is still alive, if because for all they know, without the protection of the sun and the gravitational pull of this effect, might have just killed every single human being on Earth. And Donna is absolutely just like distorted by this. She, like the Doctor, could easily become the last of her species, whilst everybody on Earth is trying to connect to the Doctor in some way, shape or form. There's no help to save them, and they need to find a way to connect to the Doctor. And first of all, it is kind of this kind of amusing moment where all of our characters are like, this is something strange, this is something odd, but you know, we can tackle it, we can sort this out. And we also then learn that there is this massive planet-sized space station in the middle of all of these orbiting planets that have just appeared into the sky, and there are ships coming down to Earth from this crucible, and they have a message for the people of Earth. As everybody hears it at the same time, the Sarah Jane and her son Luke, Jack with Gwen and Yanto, and Unit with Martha Jones. Exterminate, 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 exterminate! Sorry, I got a bit into character there. And the reactions, like that, whoa, that gives you goosebumps. That is just, the acting here is absolutely astonishing. I love Jack's reaction where he just hugs Gwen and Yanto, and it's just like, sorry, there's nothing I can do. We're going to die. Because remember, the last time Jack has met the Daleks was in the story Bad Wolf and Partner of the Waves. In that story, he technically did not survive. From his point of view, that story ends with everybody being killed, being murdered, being exterminated. And he was only brought back because Rose Tyler basically gained the power of a god to bring him back to life. That was his only... And now the Doctor's not here. Rose isn't here. So he is doomed. We also have Sarah Jane just bursting out into tears, which... that scene where she's like... she starts crying and she's just like, he's only a boy. Basically, she's hit this realization that her son will probably not live past this event, and that terrifies her. As a mother, that is like one of the worst feelings that you can have, that your son, your child will have to go through this. And Elizabeth Sladen is just phenomenal. When she hears those words for the extermination for times, her face tears up and she starts crying, because if to recall, Elizabeth Sladen, who played Sarah Jane, last encountered the Daleks way back in 1975, I want to say it is. 1975, yeah, hey, I was correct. In the story Genesis of the Daleks, in which she saw the creation of the Daleks, and she saw in that story that not only has it pushed the Doctors to new moral grey areas where he was planning on killing an entire race because they are just considered so evil, but the Daleks have also murdered and killed and destroyed countless of their own people, or at least in terms of Skaro, their own kind. And so her reaction is just heartbreaking. And this will also be the story which reunites her with a particular villain. Again, spoiled by the cover, which is really annoying, because this story sees the reintroduction of Davros, the creator of the Daleks, last seen in the 7th Doctor story, Remembrance of the Daleks, in terms of television. He has, of course, appeared in 8th Doctor audio dramas like Terra Firma prior to this, but I just thought, for the concept of, narrative, I mentioned Remembrance of the Daleks is the last appearance, and that also kind of connects with the Time War. And Julian Bleach plays Davros here, and I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but he is, in my opinion, the best Davros actor by far, like a huge amount. He has every element which is great about all previous Davros actors, like Michael Wisher and Terry Malloy, but he does it in a way which seems both as a massive tribute to those performances, but also kind of perfects what they were going for. He has that scientific, megalomaniac, kind of Hitler-inspired attitude that Michael Wisher brought to the role. But he also has this semi-cowardness, this almost slightly innocent, but the fact that he's so evil makes it so unnerving, from the Terry Malloy performance, and he blends them into this role and elevates them. That it's just some story, and he gets some really great dialogue here. Russell T Davies really knew how to write for Daleks, and specifically Davros. And I think what makes this story really work, because a majority of stories featuring Davros do underline the Daleks, because, you know, he's the leader, and so when he's put on a role, there is always this worry as a writer that he will overstate his position and make the Daleks a less threatening threat. But here, they've done something where it's basically a bit of a context. During the 1980s, there was a built-up of the civil war between the Renegade and the Imperial Daleks. And here, it's basically established that these two factions have now kind of merged. And Davros is a willing participant in the destruction of everything non-Dalek. But he seems to be much more like a prisoner to the Daleks than anything else. He is there, as the Doctor puts it in the story, a pet. And that is just phenomenal, just a bit of writing, because that puts both Davros and the Daleks at equal footing in this adventure. So that's really, really cool. So back to the Doctor and Donna stuff. The Doctor has no plans. There seems to be no reading of where Earth has gone. It just seems to just completely vanish. And so he's like, Donna, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take you to the Shadow Proclamation. The Shadow Proclamation is this universal authority which has been established since Rose, the first episode of the revived series of Doctor Who. So you could say that the Shadow Proclamation is one of the first overarching storylines that connects into Stolen Earth and Journey's End, and which we see when we get into that they are the main Forcery title of the Jadoon, and a strange race of really pale women with red eyes, like these albino women, and they seem to be this really high authority in the galactic presence. And so the Doctor comes to them for help in their investigations for the Stolen Earth. It is important, however, that Big Finish have made a story previous where Donna has met the Jadoon. I can't remember what that one's called, but anyway, I want to bring that up because a lot of people were a bit confused by this, because this story, they believed, established that Donna Noble has never met a Jadoon before. However, after rewatching it, there's nothing really that states that here. Donna just kind of has this like reaction. It's just, oh, they're aliens. And the only real surprise look that she has also occurs when the Doctor speaks Jadoon, implying that her shock, her what the hell is going on, is to do with the Doctor speaking Jadoon. So that story previous still works continuity-wise with this adventure. I know it's not really important for this video, but I feel like I had to bring it up. And these people in the Shadow Proclamations, they basically like, Doctor, you were foolish. Yes, Earth is a big, a big problem and we need to solve this out. But do you really think Earth is the only planet that has been taken? 26, I believe, they say 26 planets have also been taken. And the Doctor's just like, what? And we basically learn about this mass conspiracy. There's a scene here as well where the Doctor basically points out that he once remembers somebody trying to move the Earth before, but it can't be them. Now this is actually a reference to the Dalek invasion of Earth, the second Dalek story to ever be aired, in which the Daleks have invaded Earth in the future, and so the Doctor, Susan, Barbara and Ian try to find out what their plans are and stuff, and we learn that the Daleks have planned to go inside the Earth's gravitational and control and try to move the Earth around. However, it's really funny to me anyway, because that's not the only time that somebody has tried moving the Earth. In fact, if we're going by audio dramas, it's not even the only time the Daleks have tried to make this plan of using a Earth as a massive transport system. I believe it's in the 8th Doctor Adventures Dark Eyes, where the Daleks do that. But there's also the examples of the Cybermen in the story The 10th Planet, in which they basically plan to take over Earth and do what they did with their planet, which is turn it into basically Montas, which they can transport throughout the universe. And hilariously, there's also, though not very similar, but it is kind of relevant here, the Pirate Planet from the 4th Doctor's season, The Key of Time, in which the villain tries to squash Earth and take it for his own as this massive prize. And then it turns out there's like something to do with this evil woman character and his revenge for this particular woman. But I wanted to bring this up because when I first watched this story, I burst out laughing at this scene, because in my head, I must have watched this story recently when this story first aired. But the first thing that came to my head is then the Doctor's just like, I wonder who could it be? Somebody's moved the Earth before, tried to move the Earth before, but it can't be. In my head, he was thinking about the pirate from the Pirate Planet. That would have made a whole different story if it turns out that it was actually him all along. That would have been hilarious. I really wish I saw that now. That they did like a sequel to the Pirate Planet, where you have this massive big event that crosses over all of these spin-off shows, and it turns out to be a sequel to the Pirate Planet. Oh, sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent there, but that's a bit Moon's inside. Now, Donna Noble has these kind of blackouts where she kind of zones out and she can hear this heartbeat in her head, but she doesn't bring it up to anybody, thinking it's probably just her trying to recover from learning that her entire family has been dead and murdered. And I like this setup, which we'll play into later on in the next episode, Journey's End. And the Doctor then asks Don, it's like, come on, there's got to be some sort of warning. Something must have happened that gave away that something was wrong with Earth. And Don was just like, no, well, it was the bees disappearing. And then the Doctor's like, the bees disappearing. The bees disappearing? The bees disappearing! And he uses this as a revelation that the bees disappearing was actually a precursor to these a majority of bees being an alien race, non-native to Earth, going back to going through this stream of energy to try and find where Earth is going or something. I don't know how the technical terms. Now, the bees disappearing is a storyline that has tied in with Series 4, as well as the missing planets, because the planets that were stolen are planets that were referenced before, like Pyrovilia and Lost Moon of Bush. Which I think the Lost Planet... So let's delve into these two little aspects. The Lost Planet, I felt like really works here, because when you hear them in those stories, it doesn't feel out of place for those narratives, for those adventures. And so here, when there's all connected and all brings together, it not only feels natural to this story, but also feels natural there, because the Doctor's just mentioning just like random planets off his head. They didn't have to be mentioned in prior stories and stuff. You can just get the idea that the Doctor and Donna have travelled a while and they've just heard about these disappearing planets. So that storyline isn't heavily guarded here. As for the bees disappearing, I feel like it works in this adventure in a self-contained environment, because it does set up the explanation of how the worms, the bees work, and the idea that something so nonchalant, something so seemingly so innocent, something only Donna would pick up, would play a vital part into finding Earth. However, as I've stated in previous Doctor Who vlog videos, that I felt like the bees disappearing was one of the times where I feel like the storyline, the story arc was kind of distracting. Not hugely, they only have like sort of mentions, but it seems like those mentions were kind of forced to be like, right, this is going to be important later on because the bees are disappearing. We have to remind you that. So there's that. I did feel like it was kind of distracting and was kind of disappointed in that for other adventures. But in this story, when you see it finally conclude and what the bees mean, the bees knees, I didn't think it was that bad in this adventure. And it's only a little plot line. And we get the scene in which the Doctor, he tracks all of these bees to try and find where the Earth is, and he tracks it down to the Medusa Cascade, this aurora in the deepest parts of space. The Doctor explains that he was there as a child at the age of 99, explaining that Time Lords do age vastly slower than normal humans. A little bit of continuity for you there, for a little bit of for canon heads up for you and there. But they don't find anything, and I love the beaten down nature of this scene in which the Doctor and Donna are just like, there's nowhere else to go. Nobody can help us now. There's nothing. We're just beaten down. I love the scene with the Doctor. He's just lying on the TARDIS like this as Donna starts bursting into tears, and she kind of realizes that she'll probably never see her Earth, her home, ever again. Earth is gone. Goodbye to everybody that she has ever known. And there's no explanation. I mean, they're in a time machine. Why didn't they just go back and watch the Earth being taken? I don't know. But anyway, back on Earth, all of the humans, all of the characters are distressed, and Rose Tyler interacts with Wilfred's family. There's a great, powerful scene in which the Daleks are taking people prisoner, and there's this family who, well, it's the father figure anyway, he does not obey the Dalek. He throws rocks at the Daleks and tells his wife and his son to go back into the house. And the Daleks just blow up the house. There is a child murder in this story. Put that in your bloody canon. But anyway, this video is getting pretty long now, so to wrap up this segment in part 1 of this vlog, this all culminates in all of the, or at least all except for Rose, being connected together by this Archangel. No, it's not the Archangel wave. The subwave network led by Harriet Jones, the former Prime Minister that was previously seen in stories such as Aliens of London and World War III, and also the Christmas Invasion. I can't remember if she's appeared after that. I don't think so. But anyway, and she basically, we have this running joke where she tells people who she is, and they're like, yes, we know who you are, continuing on her character's humour. And so she has basically explained that she has this subwave which, if powerful enough, if boosted enough, could get a message to the Doctor, can connect the Doctor to them. But the problem is that when we connect it to Mr. Smith from Sarah Jane and Torchwood's hub and the rift, it will become detectable by the Daleks. And so Harriet Jones basically sets all of these people to band together to try and get the Doctor as connection. This is also the first interactions between Torchwood and Sarah Jane. Really cool stuff. I like how Sarah Jane is just like, I don't like Torchwood, there's too many guns. But then when Jack compliments Sarah Jane, she's like, oh really? She's just like, maybe it's not so bad after all. But anyway, so they all get a message to the Doctor. The Doctor gets a phone call, connects it to the TARDIS, and is brought into this Zoom conference with the rest of the spin-off cast. With Harriet Jones sacrificing herself, which will become a very important part later on down the episode. She sacrifices herself just so that all of these characters can get the Doctor in a hope, in a chance that they could save the day. So I know that's not even like the end of Stolen Earth, but I'm going to end it there because this video is going on way too long. So that is the first half. So join me next time for part 2, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!